Hi, my name's Kevin Hicks. Welcome to the History Squad. Now, this video focuses on my time as a British soldier in West Germany during the 1970s, the latter half of the 1970s. I was posted to Berlin and then sent down the East German corridor, the Autobahn, through the DDR, East Germany, the Russian zone, to the Autobahn Control Detachment, Helmstedt. I was Royal Military Police. Now, our duties involved patrolling up to Berlin and down, keeping the Autobahn corridor open, dealing with any Allied traffic that had a problem there in the Russian zone. The other one was manning the checkpoints. Checkpoint Alpha was ours. So any travellers coming up from West Germany got to go to Berlin on the Autobahn, on the freeway there. They had to book in and out through us on checkpoint Alpha before proceeding to the Russian checkpoint. Everything had to be done meticulously, otherwise the Russians will send you back. There's a full stop, not there, something's wrong. They'd send you back, and it was a pain. So we had to be 100%. And don't forget, this is the border between the British West German zone and the Russian East German zone, the Deutschland Democratic Republic. It was actually dangerous. People could be shot or even wander into a minefield if they tried to cross backwards and forwards over that border. So what we put together is a few of my slightly funnier stories of what happened to me at my time at the Autobahn Control Detachment, Helmstedt, Germany. Now, when I was posted down to the Autobahn Control Detachment, I was in for a bit of I thought at first it was a bit of a letdown. Oh, I'm not going to stay in Berlin. But I did plenty of duties in Berlin over the 2 years that I was stationed there. But patrolling the East German corridor and doing the checkpoint business at Helmstedt was quite something. Now, we were issued with some quite spectacular vehicles to patrol the Autobahn up to Berlin. And one of them was an Opel Admiral. Well, in fact, we had a fleet of them, and they were decked out beautiful as these military police vehicles. And then, to our surprise, all of us, we were issued with a Range Rover. Now, it was an early model, two-door, V8 engine. It was lovely to sit at the traffic lights in Berlin and just rev it a little bit. We loved it. And for some reason, I was allocated that vehicle for an exercise, a training exercise with one of our sergeants. And I couldn't quite understand, well, taking a Range Rover on exercise, it'll get covered in mud. And I went to the briefing with the sergeant, and it was a very unusual exercise. It was just in case the Russians blocked off the Autobahn. It was all about us putting this convoy over the wall, over the Berlin Wall if need be, and breaching what the Russians were doing. And I was, oh really, that's quite interesting. And I said, yes, and you as the driver of the Range Rover will be the lead vehicle going over the scissor bridge of the wall. And I looked at them quite blank and basically went, I'm sorry. They said, yes, you'll drive the Range Rover over the scissor bridge and over the Berlin Wall or over one of the other barriers on the West German side. And I'm kind of looking at them thinking, wow. Now, I was military police. I'd seen a scissor bridge go past on the body of a tank, but I'd never been over one. I'd never even seen one deployed. So the first part of the exercise is Kevin's going to have to drive the Range Rover, short wheelbase, over the scissor bridge. And I must have been like a kid in a sweet shop because I'm giggling, to the sergeant. I'm going, wow, this is going to be quite something, isn't it? And there they'd made a model of this concrete wall to exact size. And now all these generals and colonels are all watching. And I come along in my Range Rover and there's lots of saluting and there's a cup of tea and along comes a tank. And it was wow. And the scissor bridge is unloaded and away it goes over the wall and then it detaches and it goes to one side and then all eyes are on me. Don't forget, I'd never even seen one of these, let alone drive over it. So our officer commanding is there and all the faith in you, Corporal Hicks, and the sergeant sits next to me and he says, you do know, Kevin, that if this was for real and we had to breach the Berlin Wall or the West German corridor barrier, we'd probably just be shot out of hand by the Russians. And I kind of looked at him and then he went, so off we go then. Now, any of you who've been in a tank over a scissor bridge, hey, That's fine. That's what you're trained to do. This is me and a short wheelbase Range Rover. So there's a guy at the top there who's doing all this kind of stuff, and I understood it, and I'm going straight, and I accelerate up, not too fast, and I'm getting up, and now all you can see when you go up a scissor bridge is sky. You can't see the other side. You're going up, and I can just about see his hands as I'm getting higher, and then the front wheels go over the top, and there we are, perfectly balanced. Range Rovers don't fit over scissor bridges, you know. Nobody actually figured out the weight and size of the Range Rover. And the sergeant's going, lean back, lean back. So I've leaned back, and he says, reverse down a little bit. Have you ever reversed down a scissor bridge? I will tell you, it's not fun. So I reversed a little bit, drove up, tried to get it over. It would not go over the point at the top. I'm not panicking. I'm just kind of going, OMG, what are we going to do? We tried several times, and in the end, I had to reverse all the way back down the scissor bridge. I'll explain the scissor bridge. It's for tanks, armoured cars, Land Rovers, that kind of thing. It's not for our lovely V8 Range Rover. And when I reversed down, it felt like half a mile, and I had to be so careful, because if not, I would have flipped our precious Range Rover onto its lid. Fortunately, I got it back down, and we had a reserve vehicle. We had a long wheelbase Safari Land Rover. That was supposed to be the vehicle. They were trying the Range Rover because, wow, it looked quite spectacular. So I get out the Range Rover with the sergeant. Everybody now is conferring. It's going to be the Land Rover. We went straight up the scissor bridge, down, and away we went. The exercise could continue. Now, whenever I've recounted the story of the Range Rover getting stuck on top of the scissor bridge, I asked the question myself, what was wrong? And apparently this bridge had to be quite, I suppose, come up to quite an apex to get over this wall. That was problem number one. Problem number two, so the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers guys told me, as the wheels weren't big enough on the Range Rover. It was a test. So that's all I can remember about that incident. But then, the long wheelbase Land Rover, away we go. Exercise day 2. Our job is we've got to go ahead of a 3-mile-long convoy of infantry, light tanks, armoured cars, all of the different things, because we're supposed to be surging up to Berlin. That's the idea of this whole business. And we were about 1 mile to 2 miles ahead of the convoy. We've been going all around the countryside of West Germany, and the sergeant says to me, how are we doing? I says, we need to refuel. Now, we carried quite a lot of jerry cans, the big cans of fuel. So we pulled over in the middle of nowhere. Couldn't see a soul. So I'm there with a jerry can, filling the Land Rover with petrol, and all of a sudden, there's an armoured car comes up behind us. And I'm in mid-flow, and I look, and it's got an orange flag on it. It's the enemy. I'm halfway through, and I'm looking up, and the top of this Saracen armoured car opens up, and out pops the head of a very happy soldier. He's captured us. He's knocked the head off the snake, as it were, our convoy, and he pulls the pin out of a smoke grenade. And as he goes, ha ha ha, he dropped it. And he knocked out his own vehicle. He went straight down into the cupola. We had the driver, the commander, and a couple of other guys with all this orange dust from the smoke, and a knocked-out Saracen armoured car. What had happened was this. It was a setup. They knew we were coming through. They were waiting for us to stop or to, take our bearings, and then they were going to attack. If they could have knocked the military police vehicle off the head of the convoy, somebody else would have had to take our place. Well, it failed. The only problem was there was a Saracen armoured car, which had been knocked out, shall we say, was blocking the way. So that was the only problem. Away we go. We know exactly where we're going. We're refueled. And the sergeant looked at me and he just shook his head. He said, I don't believe what I have just seen. Did you knock out a Saracen armoured car without actually moving your hands? And I kind of smiled weakly, and we just carried on. Now, the final day of this exercise was quite something. This is the first time that I've actually joined the convoy, and it was 3 miles long. There was more light armour and infantry than I'd ever seen in my life. Don't forget, I'm stationed up on the West-East German border. We were operational. It was very rare we got involved in an exercise. So to see all of these different soldiers and just be the lead vehicle there, the sergeant, we're all, decked out properly and it's really good and the convoy flags are up. And then the command is given, advance, and off we go. And I know exactly where I'm going. The sergeant's there with his map and we've got our compasses and it's all great. And I'm going down. I've been briefed that there are enemy around. We may be ambushed and just go with the flow. So we're coming right across this heath and then down a sunken road, big high hedge. And as I'm just coming out of the sunken road, right in front of us, about 100 yards, is a car overturned, blocking the road. So I thought to myself, let's pull over, stop the convoy. So we pull over and we stop the convoy. The convoy commander comes down, he looks down the road there and he says, right, obviously a booby trap. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere is a voice, don't worry, we'll deal with that. And I look behind us and it's the Scorpion tank, a light tank of the British Army. Thank you very much. And off it goes. The convoy commander's about to say no, when this little tank roars past us. There was just enough room and he ploughed straight into that overturned car to push it out the way. And more flares and thunder flashes than you can imagine. And out from the bushes come the guys with the white armbands, the marshals there, and they say, oh, this is knocked out. You're done. Now we've got a car blocking the way with a tank stuck in it, and the tank crew are sat on the side doing this. The commander's looking very embarrassed when all of a sudden, gunfire. Over to our left there is infantry running towards us, charging in French. That was amazing. And then there's machine gun fire from behind us at these French guys. The Americans were opening up. Of course, they were all blank ammunition. And the tanks, their turrets swivel. And then there's the sound of helicopters. And me and the sergeant are stood there because we had no weapons. Well, we did, but we had no blanks. We weren't expected to join in the free-for-all. And we're stood there at the head of the convoy. The convoy commander's going, oh goodness me. And the French are charging, and I couldn't understand why they were charging over about 200 yards of open ground. Because our machine gunners of the American Army with their M60s, it was quite something. And I was, wow! And then a helicopter's come whizzing round, really low flying. And my sergeant says to me, I wonder who they are. And this chopper lands, 25 yards away, really close to us. And I'm kind of going, oh, we're about to be captured. When one pulls the pin out of a smoke grenade, would you believe, throws it towards us. I got a shovel in my hand and I just went, bap! And he went back to the helicopter. I'm not sure if it went in or just bounced off the side. But we knocked it out. All of a sudden, the sergeant's going to me, I don't believe what I've just seen, Corporal Hicks. You've just knocked out that helicopter. Everybody after the exercise are coming down to see who'd knocked out the helicopter. Well, the fact is, we won. The helicopter was knocked out, the French were mown down, and we removed the obstacle. We could then get on and bridge the Berlin Wall as it was supposed to be and rescue Berlin from the terror of the Soviet army. I, for one, had a wonderful exercise. I managed to knock out one Saracen armoured car and apparently one helicopter without firing a single shot. I was toasted on our return to Helmstedt and congratulated on my tally for the exercise. Now, if you had an officer commanding or a second in command who had a sense of humour, it was great. If you were in trouble, that was one thing, but on a normal day, if they got a sense of humour, it was good. And I remember just getting ready to leave Berlin to go down the Autobahn back to West Germany on patrol, when I saw our officer commanding coming towards me on his bike, on a push bike. And me being me, made sure my berry was straight, and as he came next to me almost, I came to attention and gave him a good strong salute. And I noticed that he saluted back. He could have said, "Morning, Corporal Hicks," or just "Morning, Corporal." That would have been fine. But he returned the salute. And I remembered that. So the very next time I'm back up to Berlin, getting ready to drive back down the Autobahn there, I'm keeping an eye out for the OC. And sure enough, he's coming along on his bike and he sees me. He tries to avoid, but I, "Morning, sir." "Morning, Corporal Hicks," and off he goes, wobbling away. And I thought this was good sport. I even arranged for us to one day, for two of us to salute him at separate intervals, so he would be wobbling all over on his bike. But what actually got me up into the OC's office was when he came towards me with the two IC, also on his push bike. And they came towards me and they concocted what they were going to do. They were going to go either side of me just as I saluted. So I come up with a very, very quick idea. I spontaneously saluted both of them, and they reacted by saluting, and within 10 minutes I was up at the OC's office. I wasn't in the car going down to Helmstedt. I was waiting outside the office with my berry in my hand, thinking, I'm in for one telling off. In I went. It wasn't marched in, I was just called in, so that was a plus. And the OC says, "Go Hicks, I know what you're doing. We're all having fun. But if you salute me again, when I'm on my bike, you might find yourself with my boot up your backside. So if you don't mind, when you see me on my bike, just a polite morning, sir, will suffice." And sure enough, for the next year or so, if I saw him when I was in Berlin and he was on his bike, it would be coming to attention and "Morning, sir." And he will be "Morning, Corporal" back, but always with a wry smile. Now, one thing that swept the British Army in the late 70s was a way of raising money for charity. And it was called the Dummy Challenge. You had a baby's dummy, I think they called a pacifier over in the States. And if somebody challenged you, dummy challenge, they held up their dummy, put it in their mouth. You had to react within, I think it was 30 seconds or something like that. If you didn't, a 25 pfennig fine, just a few cents fine. And eventually all of that would add up and we'd give it away. And it escalated. It didn't matter where you were. You had to make sure you got a dummy in your pocket. And it became so bad that guys actually tied them to their wrist and tucked them under their cuff there. So you could be walking past in the barracks and somebody, "Dummy challenge," right over there. You immediately put yours in, no problems at all. In the mess, dummy challenge, everybody stood up, put a dummy in their mouth. It was hilarious, but it was making money. But then it escalated. There would be an entire parade of all of us. We'd all be there standing to attention, and somebody would walk past the sergeant major or the officer commanding, and he would simply produce a dummy and shout, "Dummy challenge." And we would all, because we've got them stuffed up our tunic sleeve, produce a dummy. And the officer commanding and the sergeant major would have to be forfeit 25 pfennigs, because they were in on the game as well. They would actually catch us when we were underneath a vehicle, servicing it, or something like that. Eventually, it got to the stage where the OC would be in front of us, "Right, good morning," and everybody would just produce a dummy. So, on the orders, it was issued that there will be no dummy challenges on parade. But we used to get each other. We would wait until somebody was just doing some little task or was at home, and we would surprise them with the dummy challenge. But my best had to be with my next door neighbour and good friend. We called him Bunny in the day. He was a guy who was quite spectacularly tall and scared to death of spiders. I've had to go into his flat, get the spider out of the bath for him. But hey, he was a tough guy. And I thought, I'm going to get him. He got his family come over from the UK to visit him in Helmstedt in Germany. And I decided a dummy challenge. So, blacked up my face, crept off our balcony, dropped down, crept along, climbed up his balcony. The door was open slightly. I'd already done a recon. I checked it out and I thought, I'm going to get him now. And he stood up in front of everybody and they're having a laugh and a joke. And I've crept in behind the settee. And suddenly I've popped up, "Dummy challenge!" And I thought I got him. But no, his little son Warren was there. And he simply pulled the dummy out of the baby's mouth and stuck it into his mouth. That was fine until the baby started crying. Both Bunny and myself received a broadside from his wife, Sheena. She told us what for, because we were a pair of little devils, really. We were always trying to escape, do stuff. And we'd found out that in our stores, there were skis and ski suits. And so we thought, as they're just half a mile from where we lived, there was a lovely sloping field where people had made ramps and things, and we could go skiing. So there we are in our big red ski suits and all of that business, and these big skis and ski boots, and we're just trying to tiptoe out of our apartments. Have you ever tried tiptoeing in ski boots? Doesn't work. Ever tried getting through the front door with skis over your shoulder? We were caught red-handed. We were in big trouble. And Bunny's wife, Sheena, she says, you can't go unless you take Warren with you. So little Warren was put into his suit with a nice hood and fastened in nice and warm. And I come up with the idea, let's take the little wooden sled. So off we go. Warren, sled, skis, out onto the ridge that went across the two fields. Quite a steep ridge, and we're going to go across the top. Warren, he sat on the sled, and Bunny and I are taking it in turns to lead him across the ridge. No problems, and I take over. It's my turn to tow the sledge behind me, and off we go with our skis. And Bunny looks at me, he says, Kev, we okay? I went, yeah. He says, how's the baby? And I turn around, and it's an empty sledge. There is no baby, no Warren on it. To say we panicked it's just not there. We absolutely panicked. Off go the skis. We're looking. There is no sign. Oh, my goodness me. Bunny turns to me and he says this, what are we going to say to Sheena when I get back and we've lost the baby? And I'm thinking, I don't know. We were terrified about what his wife was going to say to us, not at the fact that we'd had actually lost the baby. We're going up and down the track. We can't find him. Where's he gone? He completely disappeared. And then we spotted it. Just 2 or 3 feet away from the track, further down, there was a little hole in the snow. What Warren had done is he'd managed to stand up, and he jumped off. But the snow was about 3 foot deep, so he's gone underneath the snow. You have never seen 2 British soldiers shovel snow so fast in all your life. When we uncovered his face, all he could do was giggle. So we recovered the baby. We put him on the sledge. Fortunately, I had a little bit of spare rope, so we tied him to the sledge so the little beggar couldn't jump back off. Just one of the many stories that we have of our times in the British Army. One of the duties at Helmstedt was to man Checkpoint Alpha, which was the checkpoint where travellers going to and from Berlin through the Russian zone, the DDR, would have to book in and out through us. So we know who's going to Berlin, who's got out there safely. So we were Checkpoint Alpha. At the other end, there was Checkpoint Bravo. So the British, the Royal Military Police, we took care of our own, the Americans of their military traffic, and the French of theirs. So the 3 of us sat on this big high desk at Checkpoint Alpha, which was this long, old building in the middle of the central reservation. Now, the back door to this ramshackle old building opened, and there was a dustbin, a garbage bin, and then there was a white line went across the road just behind it. That was the East-West German border. That was the Russian zone, the DDR, and nobody went there unless they had a British travel document and they were on their way to Berlin. So you can imagine, I think it was Christmas Eve. Wow, the snow was pelting down, and we're all tucked up. The Americans are both fast asleep, snoring their heads off. The Frenchman had a bed upstairs, so he's well tucked up. We've been shoveling the coal into the heater there, into the boiler, so we're nice and warm. I think I've got a coffee on the go. I'm keeping my eyes open. It must have been 3, maybe even 4 o'clock in the morning. The wind is howling when there's on the back door. That's the back door that leads to the garbage can or to the Russian zone. And I didn't believe it at first. I thought to myself, yeah, something's hitting the door. On the back door. And I actually thought that the Russians have come. I thought that I'm going to open the door. There's going to be a big T-62 tank pointing at me. So, with some trepidation, I don't know why I didn't wake up the Americans. Perhaps I tried and they were snoring away. I went to the back door, I opened it, and there was an apparition. I'd never seen anybody like this. For a start off, the whole body of this man filled the doorway. It was an African-American serviceman. The way he was dressed just blew my mind. Now, don't forget, the snow is slashing across the place. And here he stands, a cowboy hat, a Stetson, a fur coat pulled up around his face. It dropped all the way down below his knees. And there at the bottom, as I looked down, a pair of cowboy boots. I looked at him and I just went, "Who are you?" And he, "Oh, thank God, you're a Brit." And I says, "You best come in." And I shut the door. I says, "What on earth happened to you?" And he's really cold. And he says, "Oh, I've had an accident just down the way," pointing back to the DDR, back to East Germany. And I opened the door. I says, "Can we see your car?" And just about see this Cadillac-looking vehicle. It was nice and white, beautiful car, perfectly balanced on the central reservation on the crash barrier. This poor American soldier in the sleet and snow that was coming down had lost his way. The problem was he'd abandoned his vehicle in the DDR. If they saw it, they would surround it and they would capture it. This guy was in trouble. I've roused the two American MPs, the three of us are together, and I've come up with an idea. I says, the goon tower just there, the big observation post with the machine gun, they can't see a thing. If we look up, they're absolutely being pelted with the snow. Creep along, get yourself back to your car. And that's what he did. The Yanks there, or the Americans, sorry guys, were out to call up recovery, and they recovered the guy safe and sound. There were lots of incidents. This was a sensitive place, but it was a place where the Soviet military mission, part of the agreements after the war, we could patrol certain parts of the Soviet area. They could actually patrol parts of us. They were called Soxmis. Ours was Bricksmith. And our job on the checkpoint was when Soxmis came in and out, they booked in and out through the British military. We then reported that the Soviets have come in or they've come out. No problems. It was all straightforward, but we had to be on the ball. So the Soxmis, the Soviets, the Red Army there would make sure they came in the most uncharitable times of the night. And I remember being sat there the one night, desperately trying to keep my eyes open. All you can hear from my American colleagues is gentle snoring. The Frenchman, as usual, is asleep in his bed upstairs. And 12 to 14-hour shifts will do that to you. And I must have nodded off. But my feet are up on the desk. When there's a my eyes flicked open, and right on the other side of the desk is a Russian soldier. Brajovst. I leap up and I salute. But the problem was I didn't realize that my feet being elevated, they were both fast asleep. So I leapt up, saluted, and like a felled tree, I crawled myself back up. The Soviet soldier didn't break a single smile. He just waited till I returned his salute. Business was stamped, and away he went. The intelligence report was submitted, but my feet were killing me. Just one of the little things that could happen in the Cold War. So my last story for this video is about the signals department at Helmstedt, Autobahn Control Detachment. Now, I've got to really emphasize, it was serious stuff. We were literally on the East-West German border during the Cold War. There were the Soviets, there was the rest of us. Intelligence, military police, the whole lot was all wrapped up in this tiny little unit, and it was very serious stuff. And the one day, Alan, the corporal in charge of the ComCen, the communications centre there, he'd just come out and he's locking up this ComCen with all these locks on this great big steel door. And I actually says to him, I says, Alan, I says, that's amazing. You have to lock up so many. Oh, he says, it's, very serious in there. I said, well, yeah, I appreciate that. He says, you do know, don't you, Kevin? Because we were good buddies. He says that if the Soviets come over, if the Russians come over, I've got to destroy it. I've got to press the button and blow it all up. I went, really? I said, that's amazing. I said, I thought you might have to do something like that. And he said, but there's more to it. If the Russians come and I'm trying to blow it up and one of you tried to stop me, my orders is to shoot you. And I looked at the other military policeman that was with me and I smiled. I went, wow. And he says, yeah, it's very serious stuff. And he was all full of his importance. And then I said to him, I said, Alan, you do know what our orders are, don't you, for when this all happens? He says, what's that, Kevin? I says, well, you're an asset, aren't you? You know everything that's going on inside the concept. He went, yeah. I said, well, our orders are that as soon as it's all done, we shoot you. The look on Alan's face was superb. And off he went. I don't think I ever told him the truth, that I just made it up on the spur of the moment. That, hey, you've got to have a bit of fun with your comrades, haven't you? Well, I hope you enjoyed that video of my time in West Germany. If you did, like, share and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel further, why not have a look at our Patreon community? The link is in the description. Now, before I go, a quick shout out to some of our Patreon members. Adam42, Adam Wright, and Leanne P. Hey guys, thanks a million. Bye for now.